According to the National Electrical Code, outdoor receptacles within 6 feet of the ground and supplying equipment operating at 120 volts or less must be GFCI protected as per NEC Section 210.8 A6. Equipment that is installed outdoors and below grade level must be GFCI protected as per NEC Section 210.8. Because the sewer grind pump is below ground level and supplied by a 120 volt circuit, GFCI protection is required. There are acceptable options to achieve this. Firstly, you can install a GFCI receptacle outside the garage and plug the pump's factory installed cord into it. Secondly, you can hardwire the pump directly to a disconnect switch with integrated GFCI protection. This eliminates the need for a separate receptacle. Cutting off the cord ends and wiring the pump directly to the disconnect switch is not permitted by the NEC. This is because the factory installed cords are designed for the specific pump and float, and modifying them can void the warranty or create safety hazards. Therefore, the recommended solution is to install a GFCI protected disconnect switch on the outside of the garage wall and plug the pump's factory installed cord into it. This will provide the necessary protection while maintaining the integrity and safety of the equipment. It is critical to adhere to these National Electrical Code requirements to ensure electrical safety and prevent potential hazards associated with outdoor electrical equipment, especially when it is installed below grade. Using a GFCI device is vital in these situations. Ground fault circuit interrupters, or GFCIs, are designed to protect people from electrical shock. They work by monitoring the current flowing in a circuit. If there is an imbalance, which could indicate that current is leaking through an unintended path, such as a person, the GFCI quickly trips the circuit, cutting off the power. This happens within milliseconds, significantly reducing the risk of serious injury. There are different types of GFCIs. Firstly, there are GFCI receptacles, which are installed in place of standard electrical outlets. These are commonly used in bathrooms, kitchens, and outdoor areas where water is present. Secondly, there are GFCI circuit breakers, which are installed in the electrical panel and protect the entire circuit. Thirdly, there are portable GFCIs, which can be plugged into standard outlets and provide temporary GFCI protection. When selecting a GFCI, it is important to consider the specific application and the level of protection required. For example, in a residential setting, a GFCI receptacle may be sufficient for protecting an outdoor outlet. However, in an industrial setting where there is a higher risk of electrical hazards, a GFCI circuit breaker may be necessary to protect the entire circuit. The National Electrical Code provides detailed requirements for GFCI protection in various locations and applications. These requirements are designed to ensure that people are protected from electrical shock in areas where there is a higher risk of exposure to electricity and water. The NEC specifies where GFCIs are required, such as in bathrooms, kitchens, outdoor areas, and near swimming pools. It also specifies the types of GFCI devices that are acceptable for each application. In the case of the sewer grind pump, the NEC requires GFCI protection because the pump is located outdoors and below grade level, which increases the risk of exposure to moisture and electrical hazards. By installing a GFCI protected disconnect switch, the pump is protected from ground faults, and people are protected from electrical shock. It is also important to consider the type of wiring used for the sewer grind pump circuit. The NEC specifies the types of conductors and wiring methods that are acceptable for different applications. In general, outdoor wiring must be suitable for wet locations and protected from physical damage. This may involve using underground feeder, off cable, or conduit to protect the wires. When installing the wiring, it is important to follow the NEC guidelines for proper grounding and bonding. Grounding is the process of connecting the electrical system to the earth, which provides a path for fault current to flow back to the source. Bonding is the process of connecting metal parts of the electrical system together to create a low impedance path for fault current. Proper grounding and bonding are essential for ensuring that the GFCI device can function properly and protect people from electrical shock. In addition to GFCI protection and proper wiring, it is also important to consider the disconnecting means for the sewer grind pump. The NEC requires that all electrical equipment be provided with a disconnecting means that can be used to energize the equipment for maintenance or repair. In the case of the sewer grind pump, a disconnect switch must be installed within sight of the pump. This allows a person working on the pump to quickly and easily de-energize it to prevent electrical shock. The disconnect switch should be rated for the voltage and current of the pump circuit and should be suitable for outdoor use. It is also important to label the disconnect switch so that it is clear what equipment it controls. When installing the disconnect switch, it is important to follow the NEC guidelines for proper installation and wiring. The switch should be securely mounted and wired in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. It is also important to ensure that the switch is accessible and easy to operate. Finally, it is important to remember that electrical work can be dangerous and should only be performed by qualified individuals. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, it is best to hire a licensed electrician to install the GFCI protection, wiring, and disconnect switch for your sewer grind pump. An electrician will be able to ensure that the work is done safely and in accordance with the NEC. In summary, when installing a 120-volt circuit to an outside sewer grind pump, it is essential to follow the NEC requirements for GFCI protection, proper wiring, and disconnecting means. By doing so, you can ensure that the pump is protected from ground faults and that people are protected from electrical shock. Remember to always consult the NEC and local electrical codes for specific requirements in your area. Also, it is important to consider the pump-specific requirements and any manufacturer's instructions. The manufacturer's instructions often include specific guidelines for wiring and installation that must be followed to ensure proper operation and safety. Ignoring these instructions can void the warranty and create safety hazards. In addition to the NEC and manufacturer's instructions, it is also important to follow good electrical safety practices. This includes always turning off the power before working on electrical equipment, using insulated tools, and wearing appropriate personal protective equipment. It is also important to inspect electrical equipment regularly for signs of damage or wear. If you find any problems, have them repaired by a qualified electrician. By following these guidelines, you can help to ensure the safe and reliable operation of your sewer grind pump. Now, let's discuss some common mistakes to avoid when wiring a sewer grind pump. One common mistake is to use undersized wiring. The NEC specifies the minimum wire size that can be used for different circuits based on the amperage rating of the circuit. Using undersized wiring can cause the wires to overheat, which can lead to a fire. It is important to consult the NEC and use the correct wire size for the sewer grind pump circuit. Another common mistake is to improperly ground the equipment. Grounding is essential for protecting people from electrical shock. It is important to follow the NEC guidelines for proper grounding and bonding. This includes connecting the equipment grounding conductor to a suitable grounding electrode, such as a ground rod or the metal water pipe. Another common mistake is to use improper wiring methods. The NEC specifies the types of wiring methods that are acceptable for different applications. In general, outdoor wiring must be suitable for wet locations and protected from physical damage. This may involve using underground feeder, off cable, or conduit to protect the wires. Another common mistake is to fail to install a disconnecting means. The NEC requires that all electrical equipment be provided with a disconnecting means that can be used to de-energize the equipment for maintenance or repair. In the case of the sewer grind pump, a disconnect switch must be installed within sight of the pump. Another common mistake is to neglect to label the disconnect switch. The disconnect switch should be labeled so that it is clear what equipment it controls. This will help to prevent confusion and ensure that the correct equipment is de-energized when necessary. Another common mistake is to perform electrical work without proper training or qualifications. Electrical work can be dangerous and should only be performed by qualified individuals. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, it is best to hire a licensed electrician to install the GFCI protection, wiring, and disconnect switch for your sewer grind pump. Another point to consider is surge protection. Sewer grind pumps, like many other electrical devices, can be susceptible to damage from power surges. Power surges can be caused by lightning strikes, utility switching, or other electrical events. To protect your sewer grind pump from power surges, you can install a surge protective device, SPD, on the circuit. SPD are designed to divert excess voltage away from the equipment and protect it from damage. SPD are available in different types and sizes. It is important to select an SPD that is appropriate for the voltage and current of the sewer grind pump circuit. SPD can be installed at the electrical panel or at the equipment itself. It is important to follow the manufacturer's instructions when installing an SPD. Another important consideration is maintenance. Regular maintenance is essential for ensuring the safe and reliable operation of your sewer grind pump. Maintenance should include inspecting the equipment for signs of damage or wear, cleaning the equipment, and testing the GFCI protection. The frequency of maintenance will depend on the specific equipment and the operating conditions. It is important to follow the manufacturer's recommendations for maintenance. In addition to regular maintenance, it is also important to address any problems promptly. If you notice any signs of damage or wear, or if the equipment is not operating properly, have it repaired by a qualified electrician. Ignoring problems can lead to more serious damage and potential safety hazards. Now let's get into specific NEC articles that are applicable to the installation of a sewer grind pump. As mentioned earlier, NEC Section 210.8. A6 covers GFCI protection for outdoor receptacles. This section requires GFCI protection for all 125 volt, 13 amp and 20 amp receptacles installed outdoors in readily accessible locations. Readily accessible means capable of being reached quickly for operation, renewal, or inspections without requiring those to whom ready access is requisite to climb over or remove obstacles or to resort to portable ladders, and so forth. NEC Section 210.8. B covers GFCI protection for other than dwelling units. This section requires GFCI protection for a variety of locations, including outdoor locations, crawl spaces, unfinished basements, and agricultural buildings. Since the sewer grind pump is located outdoors and below grade level, it falls under the requirements of NEC Section 210.8. B. NEC Section 430 covers motors, motor circuits, and controllers. This section provides requirements for the installation and protection of motors, including sewer grind pumps. It covers topics such as motor overcurrent protection, motor disconnecting means, and motor control circuits. When installing a sewer grind pump, it is important to follow the requirements of NEC Section 430 to ensure that the motor is properly protected and controlled. NEC Section 680 covers swimming pools, fountains, and similar installations. While a sewer grind pump is not a swimming pool or fountain, some of the requirements in NEC Section 680 may be applicable if the pump is located near a swimming pool or other body of water. For example, NEC Section 680.22. 8.1 requires that all metal parts of electrical equipment located within 5 feet of a swimming pool be bonded together to create a low impedance path for fault current. If the sewer grind pump is located within 5 feet of a swimming pool, this bonding requirement would apply. NEC Section 250 covers grounding and bonding. This section provides requirements for the grounding and bonding of electrical systems. Grounding and bonding are essential for protecting people from electrical shock and for ensuring the proper operation of electrical equipment. When installing a sewer grind pump, it is important to follow the requirements of NEC Section 250 to ensure that the electrical system is properly grounded and bonded. NEC Section 310 covers conductors for general wiring. This section provides requirements for the selection and installation of conductors for general wiring. It covers topics such as conductor ampacity, conductor insulation, and conductor protection. When installing the wiring for a sewer grind pump, it is important to follow the requirements of NEC Section 310 to ensure that the conductors are properly sized and installed. Another important factor to consider is the voltage drop in the circuit. Voltage drop is the decrease in voltage that occurs as electricity flows through a conductor. Excessive voltage drop can cause equipment to operate inefficiently or to fail altogether. The NEC provides guidelines for limiting voltage drop in branch circuits and feeders. When installing the wiring for a sewer grind pump, it is important to calculate the voltage drop in the circuit to ensure that it is within acceptable limits. The length of the circuit, the wire size, and the low current all affect the voltage drop. To minimize voltage drop, you can use larger conductors or shorten the length of the circuit. In addition to the NEC, local electrical codes may also apply to the installation of a sewer grind pump. Local electrical codes are often more restrictive than the NEC and may include additional requirements. It is important to check with your local building department to determine what local electrical codes apply to your project. Obtaining the necessary permits is also essential before starting any electrical work. Permits ensure that the work is inspected by a qualified electrical inspector who can verify that the work is done safely and in accordance with the applicable codes. Working without permits can result in fines and delays, and it can also create safety hazards. Hiring a licensed electrician is the best way to ensure that the electrical work for your sewer grind pump is done safely and in accordance with all applicable codes. A licensed electrician has the training and experience necessary to perform the work correctly and to identify and address any potential problems. While it may be tempting to save money by doing the work yourself, it is important to remember that electrical work can be dangerous and should only be performed by qualified individuals. Remember to always prioritize safety when working with electricity. Turn off the power before working on any electrical equipment, use insulated tools, and wear appropriate personal protective equipment. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, hire a licensed electrician to do the work for you. By following these guidelines, you can help to ensure the safe and reliable operation of your sewer grind pump.